one of the things I want to go through with you today is to look at the expectations for things like the pre-PDR and the PDR. So these templates exist on the LaACES website. You need to use these templates and pay attention to what is discussed in them. Each of the 5 templates, we're going to talk about pre-PDR and PDR now. Each of the 5 templates build on each other. So what you'll see here is that there are sections of the pre-PDR which are not there. So even though they're numbered, so section 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, there's things for you to do, but then there's a whole bunch of stuff missing, all right? And then we pick it up at 9.0 with a few things, okay? So these other sections come in at later stages in the template. We want you to focus first on these things. And what's happening in things like the pre-PDR, there are lots of notes in here as to where things go. The pre-PDR is focused on your core information, your mission goal, your objectives, science objectives, technical objectives, right? And then your science background. What is it that you're going to do, and what's the information that you're basing your requirements on? Your science requirements flow from your science background. And notice I say here, this is a critical section. Without a good understanding of your science background, you will not be able to accurately define your requirements. So you need to spend your time with it. Now, one other thing that I do here is that I give you a way of putting figures and tables into your document. It's with a Microsoft Word text box, and you can put a caption in here with text, and you can drop a figure in. So these text boxes are already set up so that they will wrap, and you can move them as you want. You got your anchor point there, so you can move these wherever you want. So use the text boxes for your figures, right? It'll make your life a lot easier especially later on as you start working with these things. So your science requirements, we've already talked about how you make requirements. And so you need to take those rules and put it in here. These are items which are derived from your science background and your science objectives to specify the nature of your document. These are things that we are going to want to see. There's also a technical background, right? So you need to discuss technically what you're going to be accomplishing and why you're going to be accomplishing, and what are your technical requirements. So I'm just going to give you one. One of your technical requirements is going to be your payload shall be less than 500 grams. There's one, right? And the reason in your technical background is because you're going to be traveling up in a balloon, and you're going to go to 100,000 feet, and it has this temperature profile, it has this pressure profile, and LaACES management has these specifications on it, as to what they are, and some of those are going to translate into your technical requirements. There might even be technical requirements derived from some of your science. So you need to understand the differences between those two, science requirements and your technical requirements. Now, notice here that after you get through with the requirements, you're done until you get to section 9. So the pre-PDR is specifically designed to help you focus initially on the goal, your science background, your technical background, and your associated requirements. Those are the most important, that they lay the groundwork for whether or not you're going to have a successful project. The master schedule here, and notice what we say here, for the pre-PDR only, and these are instructions as to what we want to see in here. In fact, All that we really want to see here is a timeline and your milestones for this specifically, these items, nothing else. You need to put in the right times for these things. So your schedule should have a PDR, a pre-CDR, a CDR, FRR, a launch, science presentation with all the correct times for those milestones. And then you need to identify your phases in here, your science requirements, system design, electronic designs in that time frame. We don't want you to add anything else into the schedule. I want you to produce a schedule with these items, all right? That's what goes into here, into 9.9.3, right? And then glossary, you always add, keep on adding glossary items as you go through your document. That's the pre-PDR, okay? So the, let me stop share on that one, right? And then let me go to the PDR, okay? All right, so here's the PDR. Now notice something somewhat different here. Okay, first of all, you now have a section 4, a section 5, no 6, no 7. You have a section 8, as well as your 1, 2, and 3, and your master schedule, right? Notice what it says here for your first 3 sections, like for example, section 3. Note, the section should have been completed for the pre-PDR, therefore you should be able to cut and paste all subsections from the pre-PDR document to here, right? There will not be further instructions as to what you put into 3. That's from the PDR, okay? So you don't have to, you shouldn't have to reconstruct it. You've already done it. So your PDR then adds section 4, which is your payload design. Principle of operation. So this is, how is your payload roughly going to function? You know, how do your sensors work? Okay, what's the physics or the engineering behind your sensor? You're not going and doing a system design or circuit diagrams in your principle of operation. You're talking about how your payload is going to work, and in general, how those aspects of your payload traceability matrix, we talked about that, trace back to your requirements and objectives. Then you're into system design. Okay, this is not detailed design, this is system design. So your high level figures of your system and lower level ones as you go through your design. Notice here, again, we have instructions about what should be in the PDR, which sections should be completed, which are for later on, etc. And we also give you what figures that we're expecting to see in these, both at the PDR and then later in the CDR type thing. Do not want to see circuit diagrams in the PDR. That's for the CDR. What we want to see in the PDR is going to be very lower level system designs. If you don't remember what I'm talking about, go back and review that system design lecture, and I give you how a system design evolves in the pictures. We would want to see like one of the lowest level versions, the more detailed system designs, as is in that lecture. Power budget. Okay, this is what is your table. What of your components are going to be expending budget power, and how does that add up? Right. Software design, flow charts, flight software, thermal design in there, mechanical design. So in there, so you can see what then goes on with your PDR. So there's a lot of stuff that you do need to do it. Payload development plan. So this is section 5 is what are you going to do after PDR is approved and before CDR. So this section is not about, okay, well, we're going to assemble the flight hardware and we're going to solder up all of our circuit boards, et cetera. No, that's not what you're doing in a payload development. What you're doing is that you are identifying and writing about the prototypes that you're going to do. What are the things that you don't have sufficient information about prior to CDR? You need to do prototyping. You need to do testing of software subroutines, doing a breadboard of a circuit, make certain that the circuit works, et cetera, et cetera. That's what your payload development plan. It's not your fabrication plan. Project management. How is your team going to work? Right? If you've already done your team contract, then you're ahead of the game for this thing. So everything that's in this project management, if you've done a adequate team contract, you probably already have it. Okay. Right. And then finally, your master schedule. So this will tell you what it is that you add to your master schedule in here. And then finally, for the PDR is a risk management and contingency plan. This would be your initial plan that you put in here, and you would refine this in your later documents. So those are the things that we expect to see out of these documents in about 2 weeks. All right, for this stuff. So, all right, any let's see what's in the chat. Okay, I can hear now. Okay, so any questions? Any questions about what the expectation is for the PDR document, et cetera?
We were deciding like what science we wanted to do for the project. So we were looking at like examples, and we saw one where they were measuring different gases, and we were like wondering if that would like include several different sensors, because since it was like just 2 people in a group.
So
that's,
yeah. So I'm not entirely sure what the question is.
We were just wondering like if they for like we were looking at like measuring atmospheric components for like the examples of the payloads, and we were wondering if that would use like a lot of different sensors to trace different gases.
Well, you would probably figure that one out. So the way that you figure this out is that you flow through your science, and you've got to figure out your science first and what has been done and what sort of percentages or what the levels are that you'd be looking in, and then through your technical write-up and technical background, you'd be looking at how people measure these things, and then as you go through your system design, you'd be looking at how many sensors that you would be interfacing with, et cetera. The final decision, and you would probably, in your principle of operation, you'd be writing up how some of these sensors work, right? And then once you get through PDR, then during that development phase, you would potentially be ordering various versions of these sensors and testing them out and figuring out how to actually do the signal conditioning and interfacing them and reading them out. So at this stage, you aren't making a decision about a sensor. You're making a decision about science and understanding how that science is met, what science has been measured, what accuracy of things that you would want to enhance or do, and then how people have measured these things before. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. Anything else? All right, well, hearing none, then I'm going to stop the recording. And then